From the first moment I heard the awkward sounding intro to Spit on a Stranger, I was hooked on Pavement. Most of you know the details at this point. My roommate Mike was a big fan of Nigel Godrich as a result of OK Computer and the rest of the Radiohead oeuvre. He brought home his latest effort by a band called Pavement. After a few spins, he was confused and confounded, so he gave the disc to me because I was interested in Godrich as well, based on my love of the Mutations record by Beck. So I put it on a mini disc. I was using a mini disc player at the time. I recorded it from CD to mini disc, put it on my headphones, and like I mentioned, from the first moment I heard it, that was it. What was this? Do you know I started a podcast about this band? That's how much I dug them. It was June 8th, 1999, that the world first got to hear the most recent collection of Pavement tracks. I was about to turn 25, and if you've been listening to these little pre-album essays, there's been a theme running through them, and it's the death of mainstream rock and roll being supplanted by pop music and hip hop, largely. Sure, there were still, the U2 and Chili Peppers Light, new metal, and all the shit that Woodstock 99 represented. But most of the heavy lifting in the rock and roll category was being done, well, by the giants I mentioned earlier back in Radiohead, but more precisely, the emerging indie artists. Most of them had probably cut their teeth with Perfect Sound Forever, or maybe, at the very least, Crooked Rain, Crooked Rain. There was no more true alternative, as it had become just another label to market whatever pap the machine wanted to spoon out. Now, 99 was an interesting year because it was sort of the end times, we were being told. There was this thing called Y2K that was going to end the world, or at least change it as we knew it. And there was this undercurrent of fear that existed as a result of that. I was 25, or just about to turn 25, when I listened to this record. And I was still in school. I was taking a college program to become a public relations expert. And I was working at Starbucks. As it turned out, I enjoyed Starbucks more than I enjoyed college, and I ended up becoming a store manager. That's where I met my wife. She was a barista, and we fell in love. That was in 2003, though, so that was a few years away. But in 99, I was still, sort of in love with coffee and in love with being young, meeting friends for beers. I had a refrigerator in my house, but I don't know if I ever had food in it. I feel like I ate at the pub every goddamn night. And on my walk to the pub, invariably I would have my headphones on and I would be listening to this Pavement band. I ultimately got myself up to speed on who they were, what they were, and I Columbia Housed myself a couple of their records. Yeah, Columbia House. How do you like that? What a fucking deal. 12 CDs for a penny. Come on. It's unbelievable. If you've never heard of Columbia House, look it up. It was a fucking genius thing for hicks like me that didn't have cool record stores near them. So there's that. But let's shift back to 99 again for a minute, because there's a certain sheen about 99 that is really interesting to note. From time to time, I get high and I think about this. I think about peak pop culture. And there is a strong argument to be made that 1999 was the peak of pop culture. It makes you wonder if the corporate machine gave an enema to the pop culture apparatus for some, to get it all out before New Year's Eve, Because I'll tell you, if you think about prestige television, okay, it was very early on, it was nascent, but you could argue that it began in 99. List your favorite movies. There's a good chance that a number of them came out in 99. Fight Club, The Matrix. I mean, I don't have a list in front of me. I should. Even music. Now, music had a certain, pop music in particular wasn't for me, but the shine of it all sold records, and records were set and broken in 99 by the likes of Britney Spears, Backstreet Boys, NSYNC, Eminem, maybe the Spice Girls in there. I think their second record was 98, though. I'm not 100% sure. All this was happening, though. We were being reminded that our world, or at least the world as we knew it, was going to end with Y2K. So, aliens come down to Earth years from now, and they are going through our archives, and hey, 99, the civilization ended, and these guys were pretty hip. Sopranos is a fucking good show. This Eminem, he's got a lot to say. Doesn't seem like he has enough time to say it because he's talking really fast. I don't know. That polish, is it represented on Terror Twilight as well? This is a polish that we haven't seen. Nigel Godrich did this record pro bono, but it still costs over $100,000 to make. Think about that. They had to get some pretty good space for him. I don't know. Like Pavement were clearly able to synthesize so much of what was going on in the early part of the 90s with a healthy dose of experimentation and who gives a fuckitude. But this record wasn't slacker. It was atmospheric. It was lush. There were things going on in the band that maybe were being projected in the songs even, which is, I'm looking at you and Don't Cry. I'm looking at you right now, straight in the eyes. Is the titular character Anne a metaphor for the fan base? Even in 99, it seemed that way to me. This was a band saying goodbye. This was a band doing a very different record with a very different style. But I'm convinced they knew it was the end. So, what do you say we get this show on the road? Let's listen to some music Maybe read some emails. Maybe have a little fun. Maybe learn something along the way. And maybe I'll finally get around to the task at hand. Meeting Malcolmus. Welcome to Meeting Malcolmus, a Pavement podcast. Hey, it's JD here, back for another week of loading the shotgun with bullets that are the songs in the discography of seminal indie rock band Pavement, firing them into the target and just enjoying the fuck out of them. I am uncool and underqualified, but here I am. Episode 105, 106, something like that. Not to mention, 40 plus episodes on the bonus feed. So there's a lot to listen to if you're new. If you're not new, well, you know how we do things around here. Week over week, we listen to a track in chronological order from our favorite band, Pavement. Try and make sense of the song contextually, lyrically. I do my best to talk about the musicality of the song when I can. And we just have some fun. So there's that. The pod list was an enormous success. So much so that there will be a second pod list at some point, because definitely one of the most downloaded episodes I've had in a long time. Really made a mark. And I even had a Twitter conversation with Spiral today, and he asked if he could listen to the songs. So we know he's not subscribed to the podcast, but he wants to hear. So I sent him a link, and we'll see if he gives it a listen. I am hearing, that people wish that I would have DJ'd it or whatever. And I hear that. Maybe if there's another one I will, or I'll ask your feedback and we'll go from there. But, that's pretty much where we're at. Today we are starting Twilight finally, which is a record that was titled by Bob Nastanovich. He reckons that Twilight is the name of that weird period between daylight and night, where it's really difficult to drive and a good percentage of accidents occur. It's it's sort of a bad magic hour, I would say that the accident that occurred in this case, the songs that make up Twilight, are all real happy accidents. It's a great record. People were expecting a Pavement record when it came out, though, and they were sort of surprised. It has a different feel. It has a different sheen. I would say that owes to the production that was put together by Nigel Godrich, who has tweeted, on occasion, not on occasion, he tweeted once that he basically gave them a rate of $0 to produce this record. He wanted to do it so bad. In fact, he said he was crashing on couches in NYC to make it happen. The band just had to come up with the studio time. And we know that this is a band that typically, the relationship that they had with their record company, it seems that they went out and made the records and then were paid by the record label for the tapes. Like they seem to have did it themselves, obviously with record label money, but they didn't have a great deal of oversight from the record company, which is, a nice thing. In this case, though, the band thought that they could record this record in the rehearsal space, Sonic Youth's rehearsal space in New York City. When they got there, they realized that wasn't gonna cut the mustard, and they ended up having to rent some, a lavish studio where the Beastie Boys had recorded, and then they did some final mixes, overdubs, and Nigel did his mixes at RAK in London. So there's that. Now, like we do before we start any new record, I do my little essay off the top. And then I usually make a phone call to my friend Bobby from Atlanta to talk about the album artwork. And we did that once again this time out. I called Bobby, and he had talked to Mark O, who does the album artwork and the graphic design for Matador, and as such for Pavement. You're going to hear that it sounds like they had a plan for a while with this record. But let's go right to that interview now with Bobby from Atlanta, talking about the album artwork. Bobby from Atlanta, are you there?
Check.
All right. I love it.
Howdy.
How's it going, man?
It's going great. How are you doing?
It's always good when I get to talk to you and learn what you have learned and listen to your opinions. And oh my gosh, I forget his name. Is it Mark O?
Mark O, yes.
Mark O.
O-H-E.
That's right. When we get to hear what you've gleaned from him and what you've interpreted with your own visual background about the covers of the Pavement records. Now, this is the last one.
Do you have a tear forming in your tear duct?
You know what? I do. It's there for sure.
It's kind of sad. I don't want to stop.
Yeah. Whether or not I continue on with the Jix records, we shall see. But I've never really thought of the Jix records covers in the way that I think of the Pavement record covers. Like they're much more straightforward. Does that make sense?
Some of them they vary a lot.
That's
they all vary, but yeah, I see what you're saying. There's a little bit of a different vibe to it.
Maybe it's just me, but like Pavement was always mysterious.
Yeah, it's less it's more slick on the Jix.
Yeah, it's like SM is more known, and that sort of thing. So yeah. So here we are at Terra Twilight.
It's the Twilight hours.
That's right. That's right. Terra Twilight, of course, an album name, from what I understand, named by Bob for the hours that you have difficulty seeing, when you're driving on the road.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a term from Bob Nastanovich, apparently. So in my research, that's what I learned.
There's also a term called the gloaming. Have you ever heard that?
I've not.
So the gloaming, which this ties all nicely together. There's a Radiohead song called Gloaming.
That's right.
And the gloaming is that eerie time where your vision gets confused because it's right in between day and night. That's the gloaming. So
really,
your fact of the day from Atlanta.
Well, that's cool because you're right. It does tie together because you've got Nigel Godrich producing this record, who is of course the oh my gosh, I can't think of the intrepid Beatles producer.
Yes.
But he was like the fifth Beatle, and I always consider Nigel Godrich like the sixth member of Radiohead because he's been there for virtually everything.
Yeah, he's half of the sound, I feel like.
Yeah. And then Johnny Greenwood also appears on this record. So there's there's some more Radiohead crossover.
I didn't know about Johnny Greenwood.
Yeah. Yeah, he
That's cool.
plays. I believe he plays guitar on a couple tracks, and I think he plays harmonica.
There must have been a hangout session at some point between all of these people.
Oh, wouldn't that have been cool to be in the
Must
next
have been.
booth or whatever? Like, not even assuming that I would be allowed at their booth, like
Yeah.
just to be in the next booth away or a couple chairs down or whatever, just listening to them talk
That's
about
like the
music.
Beatles and the Stones getting on stage together or something.
Jeez, that's so cool.
Uh,
So, what have you learned, young
oh
man?
gosh, I always learn so much, and I always am hesitant going in like this is gonna bomb, And then I get on the phone with Mark, and Mark fills me in. Okay, computer, which was the kind of the landmark Radiohead album that started it seemed like a new era of Radiohead, and that was '97.
That's right. Yeah.
So, and this is '99 that we're looking at Terror Twilight. So, I think surely Steven and company must have been fond of that album and found it. The production was obviously really cool and unique, and so I would imagine Steven wanted a little bit of that in his world, and that's how we got here. Um,
It's just so strange to go from like, hey man, we recorded this in like an apartment, above a music shop with a pseudo engineer, and then Bryce Goggins saves the day, to like, we're going to go and record in like a full on, I mean, of course, Wowie Zowie was recorded in a great studio with a great producer as well, and so was Brighton, but this is next level. This is
yeah,
next level. Like when you're saying that, that polished sound, this is a band that went from recording session work in Gary Young's studio to now, they're with this savant.
yeah. It happened. One parallel that I could quickly mention that just came to mind is there's a band called Iron and Wine. Have you ever heard of them?
I have heard of Iron and Wine. Yeah.
They're really fantastic band, great songwriting. But that guy Sam recorded really lo-fi. Sounds like it was recorded on a tape, on like a cassette tape almost. And then he got to the point in his career where he had to do something different because the sound was so distinct and it was so lo-fi that you couldn't do that for your career over and over again. So he ended up going from that Creek Drank the Cradle album, which is a great album, to the sound, a totally different dynamic, wide ranging sound on Shepherd's Dog is the name of the album that comes to mind, that was like really richly produced and lots of these kind of overlaid and interlaid sounds
Wow.
in between tracks, leading in and leading out of tracks. And anyway, yeah, I think you have to mix things up or it just gets stale.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah. So, Pavement, this album was the first one I bought with my own money at a store. And I remember that day, and it was just, it's maybe my favorite for that reason, just because I have a real distinct, it came out, I went to the store and bought it when it came out, and it was new,
Yeah.
So, but anyway, circling back, I talked to Mark, and he lives in upstate New York, and evidently lives kind of in a rural area. And he was telling me, I talked to him for like an hour, which is just so cool. So cool. But so at some point, 15 minutes into our conversation, he said, hang on, I'm going to go out back real quick. And he has what I imagine to be like a shipping cargo container on his property that's loaded with art stuff.
Jeez.
little pieces of paper and notes, all the things that he wanted to keep safe and remember and pass on at some point. So he went back out into his backyard and started digging through this container and looking at notebooks and notes from this file folder, and was on the fly reading through this stuff and trying to remember things. And it was just unbelievable. He dug through, let's see, for starters, this is probably some of the coolest stuff I've received from him of anything. So the album title, there were alternative album titles that they were tossing around.
Oh my gosh.
I guess Bob ended up winning the day with the Terror Twilight name. But a couple of the running, evidently there was a song called Forever Horizontal.
Right.
Or Farewell Horizontal.
Farewell Horizontal. That's right. That's what the expanded CD is going to be called.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Mark said, I can't remember, was it Farewell or Forever Horizontal? But he said that was the running title for the album for a while. And that I guess someone along the lines thought that sounded kind of negative, or just had kind of a negative vibe to it.
Sure.
So they ditched that. But he said, when I started emailing with him, he said, I'm in the process of digging into this reissue, anniversary expanded edition. So, and I think you let the cat out of the bag on that too. So there is an expanded reissue coming, and he said probably 4 vinyls.
Oh my God.
Is what he said. 88 minutes is.
Wow.
I looked up the math on that. It's 88 minutes worth of stuff that you can fit on four vinyls. So that maybe it was 4 sides. I'm not totally sure, but yeah, there's evidently some gold hidden down in the mine.
Oh boy, that's exciting.
Yeah. So he's working on that as we speak right now. I'm assuming now that we have tour dates again, that he was saying that it got tabled, that they kind of just put it on the back burner because the tour was canceled from COVID. So they just said, yeah, let's just chill out for a bit on this. So I thought that was really interesting that they had a title that they nixed at the 11th hour. And he's got
artwork with that album title on it.
I don't know that he's got artwork. So we should cover the artwork since that's why the thrust of me being here.
No, you're getting insider access. So whatever you glean, share away. Yeah. But I just wondered if you saw, that would be so cool to see that album artwork with that title on it. That would be neat.
I've not seen any artwork with the title on it, but I have seen. So the Terror Twilight cover, as we know it, is black with these red, blue, yellow stars and whatnot. And it was taken from a French tapestry that was much, much larger. A tapestry is meant for a wall. Right. So this is a little man figure with his dog. And that was in the corner of this large tapestry. And I guess from what I gather, Stephen took a liking to the artwork and thought it was cool. It always reminds me of, I feel like a neon cowboy vibe to it. It kind of looks like a cowboy, like a Western shirt almost with the
I can see that.
And then the other thing I always feel like, I grew up in the 80s, so I remember going to the roller skating rink, and they always had these bright primary color flashing lights. And so it reminds me of like roller skating rink and a cowboy and maybe some neon lights too. You know, like
Sure.
if you went in a bar and you like an old dark bar and they had Christmas lights up or something like that. It just kind of
Oh,
reminds
that's
me of that.
fantastic.
Yeah, that's just kind of how I always read it. I never really looked closely at it. I just looked at it from a distance, and it just gives you that kind of nighttime neon light vibe. So he said that basically Steven kind of dug this artwork and said, can we take this and make it work? And he said, sure. So they did a little manipulation here and there, but it's pretty straightforward. This was interesting, I thought. So I'm a graphic designer by trade, and that the font of Pavement and Terra Twilight's the same, and it looks a lot like a common font called Euro Style. Is what immediately I looked at, and I thought that they probably just typed that out. But what he told me was that they did not just type it on a keyboard. It was a French. So the tapestry's French, and then there's also this thing that you can buy at an arts and crafts store, I guess, called Letra Set, which is like a set of letters in a specific font. And it's kind of like you rub it on, like you take a pencil and you flip it upside down and you scratch it, and it lays it onto paper. So they found these Letra sets. I imagine maybe they were touring in France or something and picked up some of this stuff. But he said it was called Letra Set. It's kind of like an arts and craft thing, and this one was called Mechanormal, which is like, I don't know, it just kind of sounds like I think of German. What is that German band that's oh gosh, I can't think of it.
Can?
Not Can, but I can't think of, what is it? That it was a whole like type of music, a style of music. Anyway, I imagine them I can see Steven getting into like a French theme and going full in on that. And so the other thing too was, so I mentioned Forever Horizontal or Farewell Horizontal being an alternative title or album name. He also had a couple of other alternative titles. One called Sum of Our Parts.
Oh, wow. Which is a great title.
But it's not SUM, it's SOME.
Right. Sure.
So it's like like some of our body parts or some of our,
well, the fact that it's such a Malcolmus centric record, you know what I mean? It's almost like, to me, it's almost like, this is the Steve record, right? Like this is Some of Our Parts.
Yeah.
That's why I get a kick out of that. That's cool.
The other one, this is just the weirdest timing. So the third alternative title was Egg Recordy.
Egg Recordy?
Egg as in eggs and toast.
Yeah.
EGG. And then the other word is Recordy, which is record with a Y on the end.
What the fuck?
And so here's the crazy full circle thing. I said, like, what the hell does that mean? Obviously. And he said, well, there's a Can album called Egg Bamyasi.
Okay.
EGE, not egg as in EGG. So it was obviously a rip off of Can's Egg Bamyasi, which is kind of their most popular, critically acclaimed album.
Right.
And then after I got off the phone with Mark, like a week or two later, Malcolmus puts out a cover album of Can's Egg Recording or Egg Bamyasi.
Right. That's why that title was stuck in my head.
right after I had this conversation, he releases a cover album of that album.
That's
So
pretty
fucking
cool.
weird. Yeah. So, and then I was asking him some nerdy graphic design questions. So I was looking at the album artwork, and I was like, well, he kind of like did a little manipulation. Like some of the stars are floating on top of the word pavement. You know, just a little bit of little extra,
Like play almost.
yeah, a little bit of extra like graphic treatment. And he said, well, I think Mark Eibold actually did that. So so Mark stopped by his office. I think Mark lived around the corner or a few blocks away from the Matador, um, you know, corporate office where Mark works. And I think from what he was saying, Mark stopped by one day and like I think he said he rode over on his bicycle or something. And he stopped by and he was like playing around with it and moving the stars around and put some on top of the wording. So I thought that was kind of a cool little snippet. They also told me some other really interesting little tidbits. He mentioned that there's some. He was digging through his storage unit while we were talking, and he said there's also, you know, with this expanded reissue, there's some tracks listed here that were in, you know, the original set of tracks that they were trying to narrow down was a good bit longer than what ended up on the album. And he was running through all of those notes and he said, oh, here's some album tracks that didn't make it on the album, but they'll probably be on the reissue. And they're great, really great names, of course. So you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Black Lemonade.
Oh my God, that's great.
And then these two are funny. Blown Coverage, which is like a football term. When you shit the bed and your guy runs past you, that's basically blown coverage, which is it's got kind of like a sexual innuendo in there too, maybe.
Sure.
Or something.
That's very salacious.
And then this one's great too. Kiss It If It Moves.
What the hell?
I thought that's my favorite. Kiss It If It Moves.
These are song titles that maybe some people out there have heard before, but to my ears, these are brand new. And
probably nobody other than insiders would have ever heard those names.
That is pretty badass, man.
Yeah. So look out for Black Lemonade, Kiss It If It Moves, and Blown Coverage on Farewell Horizontal one day. Trying to think if there's that. It was a pretty concise list of notes that I had, but they were like just really great stuff that he passed along to me.
So what are your? Oh, sorry.
No,
go ahead.
I was going to turn it back to you and see if you had any questions or ideas about this.
Well, as far as the artwork goes, the only other question I have is there's that poster that's done in the same style, but it's got like the cowgirl.
Yeah.
Did you talk about that at all, or what that was about, or
I'm trying to recall
where that came from?
I'm looking for the. Let me see if I can find the poster. I'm typing it in. Yeah, I think it's probably the same. I don't see it when I pull it up on. Oh, there she is. Yeah, she's like a white, almost like albino.
Yeah,
nude girl. That has to. I don't know. I think he had mentioned at one point that Steven's mom, I think, was an artist. I don't know if any of this stuff is from her. I believe it was his mom. I think she had contributed something on a previous episode that we talked about. Maybe an inside, one of the images on the inside of the, the fold out paper work. But I don't know the provenance of the albino girl, naked albino girl.
Well, if you're listening and you do know out there in Pavement World, shoot me an email, jd@meetingmalcolmist.com. I would love to know what you think about that and where it came from. Like, was it a record store exclusive? Like, I visualize it being hung up in record stores, like to advertise the record.
Yeah,
That's sort of how I see its use. But I don't recall. I just remember the record being in record stores. I don't remember, any real like great promotion of this record, other than magazines. There were a lot of magazines that were really pumped about the idea of this lo-fi, band that had really come around with Brighten the Corners, partnering with Nigel Godrich and putting out, a more complete, full sounding record to see if, just to see what the future is. To me, Terror Twilight has always been like sort of a first draft of the Stephen Malcolmist solo record.
Yeah.
That's sort of what it reminds me of. It's just like, like, what are we going to do with this? And that's not to diminish the work of the other guys on the band at any stretch, but it's the only record that is missing a Spiral song. And we know that there was a great Spiral song out there because we all have seen Slow Century and we've seen For Sale, the Preston School of Industry. And we all have our fingers crossed and hope that track makes Farewell Horizontal. So, yeah, there's that. What are your like call out tracks on the record? You're mentioning that this is from a nostalgia perspective. This is probably your favorite record, but if you were to take nostalgia out of the picture as best you can, obviously, what are your lasting memories of this record, and what are the standouts for you?
I feel like it flows naturally, which is probably part production, because it really, like, each song kind of flows into the next song literally. Like, there's sound that kind of fuses songs together. And the opening track, Spit on a Stranger, is, I think that the intro goes pew 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 pew, and
Yes.
there's like these weird electronics, and then the thing about that always gets me is the bass. You have these kind of electronics, and then the bass really is really in the forefront.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and it's just really present. And I love bass guitar for starters. Major Leagues obviously is just a classic.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really. I like this album for the reason that I like a lot of albums, which is that I don't really. I used to go. I remember you. I'm sure you remember as a kid. You would go on a CD and you would fast forward to like track 5, and you'd be like, "Oh, I love this song. I love the song," and then you go straight to track 5. I don't like that. I've never, since I've kind of gotten older, I don't do that much. I'll shuffle my playlist occasionally through Amazon Music or whatever.
Yeah.
But I really prefer to just put an album on and press play and listen to it all the way through. And this one treats your ear to that. I mean, it just fits that kind of way of listening to me, where it works.
That's really cool. And it's also probably, if Spiral happens to be listening, probably very validating to him to hear, because I know there was a tug of war between he and Nigel Godrich on the track listing. And I'll get into that.
Was like, I don't know if nature versus nurture is the right term, but some of it is like, what is the term I'm thinking of? It this way, and so it feels right because that's the way it is. And so I think that if it were done differently, you might feel like that's the way it should have been too.
Sure.
because that's the way you know it.
Yeah.
So there could, I mean, maybe Spiral nailed it. Maybe it's just my affection for it that's gelled over time, but just feels like a natural flow. And
I think
it's
it flows
always,
really well. Yeah, I think it flows really well. And maybe we should put out a playlist or something like that of the Nigel cut of the record.
yeah,
To just get familiar with that. But to my ears, it really works as well. Like I'm with you. Like there's a certain flow that's present.
I would dare to say that this expanded re-release will be the best of any of them because
Wow, that is bold.
I just have a feeling about it because I know the way Radiohead handles their albums and how many tracks go into an album. A lot of times it's like 40, and then they end up with 11. and there's so much with Nigel Godrich, there's so much experimentation that it's not going to all work.
Right.
And, a lot of things are done forwards, backwards, spliced together.
Right.
And sometimes that ends up perfect and sometimes it doesn't. So the amount of experimentation that's on record during the session has got to be incredibly vast.
But we've got 2 EPs. You know what I mean? Like there's 2 EPs, and the EP that we just finished on the show had like 6 tracks on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, I hear you, but I wonder. I'm really curious because like, why did those Terror Twilight EPs end up on the Brighten the Corners? Expanded edition. Like it's so strange to me. So you must be right, because there must be, when they put them on Right in the Corners, they must have known, well, we've got this in the catalog to put on Terror Twilight. So I don't know. We just have to wait and see. But I've been alluding to a secret on a few episodes that I've talked about, and I may as well just say it now. I haven't got confirmation from Spiral if I can say it, but the one time I was talking to him, he had the album in front of him. Like, so he's got a pressed CD version of the expanded edition, and that was about a month ago. Mm-hmm. So it's between Marco's work on the album cover and them listening to actual press copies of the track listing and the CD. I mean, it's for real, folks. It's happening. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So that's really fucking cool.
It's gonna be good too. Guarantee it. Mark, Mark is so magical. Like talking to Mark, he was like, "Well, I probably should." He's so gentle and thoughtful, and is happy to elaborate on and on. And he kind of said at some point after an hour, he's like, "I probably need to go. I have an album that I'm working on for Nathan Salzberg that I need to give him revisions back tonight." And so Nathan Salzberg is probably one of my favorite guitarists of anyone. And I didn't know he was working with him. Like this guy's cool. He's got his fingers in all these different soups. He's just he's kind of a I don't know. He's like a nerd legend.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
It's so fortunate that you've been able to form a relationship with him. And I'm sure that we'll continue to communicate. I don't know if we'll do, full-on sessions like we've been doing, Bobby, but man, it's been just a blast doing this.
It has been. I was so nervous the first, that slanted interview or conversation we had. I was so nervous, and I felt like the podcast was so cool, and I just kind of threw it out there that time I emailed you. I was like, "What do you think about this?" And then I told a buddy of mine, I was like, I'm going to be on this fucking podcast. It's going to be awesome.
And it is awesome.
And it was it's kind of like you do a research project about, like World War II. or whatever. And then you're like, I know so much more now
That's
about this
cool.
because I got to dig my teeth into it a little bit.
Well, and you've got to share so much as well.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of people who have listened to you, who have learned, a great deal, and are probably very jealous that you sent the email and that you had the idea and that you had the tenacity to find Mark O and form a relationship with him. And it's just been really wonderful. So
It
thank you
has.
so much.
Well, thank you for having me and agreeing to it. I think that hopefully it adds a dimension to what you're doing. So
Oh, definitely. I always learn something.
awesome.
All right, man. Well, on that note, we'll pack it in. This is going to be a long episode, I'm sure. I got a lot
Happy
to say about this record.
birthday. Happy belated
you so
birthday
much.
to JD, everyone. Everyone applaud.
Yes. I'm red in the face right now.
Well,
All right, buddy. Stay cool in Atlanta.
you too. I'm not going to stay cool. It's 90 degrees here.
Jesus. All right. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Whatever it takes, whenever it's real, whatever awaits, whatever you need, however so slight, whenever it's real, whenever it's right. I've been thinking long and hard about the things you said to me, like a bitter stranger. And now I see the long, the short, the middle, and what's in between. I could spit on a stranger. You're a bitter stranger. Whatever you feel, whatever it takes, whenever it's real, whatever awaits me, whatever you need, however so slight, wherever it leads, whenever it's right. Honey, I'm a prize and you're a catch, and we're a perfect match. Like two bitter strangers, and now I've seen the long and short of it, and I can make it last. I could spit on a stranger. You're a bitter stranger. Well, I could spit on a stranger. Pull me out. You're a bitter stranger. I see the sunshine in your eyes. I'll try the things you'll never try. I'll be the one that leads you high, high,
Oh boy. That's just beautiful, right? Love the way it begins. Love the way it kicks off the record. Now, interesting story here. Godrich basically had a set list. He felt like he was immersed in the songs and the creation enough that he had come up with a set list and, basically challenged Malcolmus and said, we've gone stoner record here and you need to go full bore with that conceit that this is a stoner record. And therefore, these are the songs that need to, this is the order that the songs need to be in. And Spiral, having learned his lesson from Wowie Zowie, which you could argue, you know, was a bit of a commercial gamble with the set list that they had released. Spiral had always insisted that he had a classic rock record cut of Wowie Zowie. So he had his own sequence for Terror Twilight as well, and he won out. And to my ears, that song, you know, really works as an intro to the record. You hear the lush, like the atmosphere that's being created, really great channel separation, you know, between some of the backup vocals, and just like a dreamy, real atmospheric melody chosen by Malk as well in that song. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put together the Nigel Godrich track list and release it as a bonus episode on the bonus feed. So if you're interested in that, you can subscribe to the bonus feed, $3 a month. If you're not interested in that, that's cool. If you're already on the bonus feed, well, hey, you got something to look forward to. The Nigel cut of Terror Twilight. So that's pretty cool. What do you think of that song? I dig it. It's not Summer Babe. It's not stereo. You know, as a kickoff track, it's not Silent Kit. Like, it's not these songs that we're used to kicking off a record. So it really does a good job of lighting the way and telling you, you know, what this is about. And then from a subject matter perspective, I feel like it's very mature. Like, there is a lot going on in here. However you feel, whatever it takes, whatever it's real, whatever awaits, whatever you need, however so slight, whenever it's real, whenever it's right. That's beautiful. You know, that's just really nice. And that's your, you know, your verse. And then you get this big chorus. I've been thinking long and hard about the things you said to me, like a bitter stranger. Now, is this insinuating that the person who said the things was speaking like a bitter stranger, or they're being interpreted by a bitter stranger? Because their perspective changes. And now I see the long, the short, the middle, and what's in between. I could spit on a stranger. And you're a bitter stranger. So, yeesh, you know, that it sort of gets a little darker there in the second verse. But, in the second chorus rather, but then the first chorus. But when we get to the second chorus, I fucking love, honey, I'm a prize and you're a catch and we're a perfect match. Oh, I have long loved that lyric. That might be one of those ones that when I first heard it, I was just like, just bouncing, you know? Really quite dig that. Honey, I'm a prize and you're a catch and we're the perfect match. Like two bitter strangers. So is this the start of a relationship, or is this the end of a relationship? I think thematically, we're going to see that a little bit on this record. And I think it's the end of the relationship. This is a group of people that aren't necessarily friends, but they're not, you know, they're not strangers, but then there's this bitterness there because of all that they've, you know, went through together and created. And, I don't know. Is this about him and Scott? Like, I don't know. It's real interesting. Real interesting. That's what I have for you on Spit on a Stranger, the first track. Love that fucking bass sound in there. Oh, man. This is a long one. Sorry for that. Clocking in at, you know, almost an hour here. So I won't bore you any longer. Keep yourself hydrated, won't you? And wash those goddamn hands. We'll talk to you next week.
Meeting Malcolmus, a Pavement podcast, is a weekly affair. Connect with JD at meetingmalcolmus.com. Please support the pod by rating, reviewing, or sponsoring us at meetingmalcolmus.com. And hey, I'm social. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at Meeting Malcolmus.